Hello, everybody, and we're back talking baseball. I'm Gary Mack.
And Rich Baxter over here. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Baxter. How have you been?
Not bad, not bad. Shaping up here all the way into September already. Good deal into it already.
Yeah, certainly are, and it's been a crazy year. And I guess we can start tonight's show with a little bit of a sad note, as we lost two legends, really, two of the biggest stars of the game, as Tom Seaver and Lou Brock passed away since the last time we were together.
Yeah, Tom Seaver passing away first, of course. Uh, yeah, a lot of these players that we grow up on and, went to the ballpark to watch, legends of the game, so to speak, now aging very, very rapidly. And Tom Seaver, one of the greats of the game, used to be one of my favorite players in the game in the 70s. And you just don't believe that these people are human. They're larger than life to people like us that watched them.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was talking to somebody about Tom Seaver. I do a Mets show, Mets Musings, and we were talking about the passing of Tom Seaver, and it's true. You always thought Tom Seaver. We still remember as a 25-year-old bulldog on a pitching mound with the thick legs that got all he pushed off, used the power of his legs so much to help him pitch. And he was an ex-marine, so you have this feeling of this strong man, and even some of the pictures that there was a picture his daughter took, no date on it, but it was the last picture she took of him. So I'm assuming it was in the last month or two. He still looked like a very, he had put on some weight in retirement, but still looked like a very big, tough guy, and to fall to something as this Louis, or I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Lewy, body dementia, and of course COVID-19 really kind of that's what really did him in quickly. But he was 75, three-time winner of the Cy Young Award, and a 12-time All-Star, first ballot Hall of Famer, had the highest percentage of Hall of Fame votes up until Ken Griffey Jr. and then the pitcher for the Yankees, who shall remain nameless, who went in. But Tom Seaver gone. Lou Brock, too, another Hall of Famer. He fought through a number of medical conditions in recent years. He was a little bit older than Seaver. He was 81. He was the National League all-time leader in stolen bases, 938. He had 3,023 hits. Another first ballot electee into the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. And of course, one of the things he remembered in his career, besides the stolen bases, he actually started with the Cubs. I don't know if people remember him with the Cubs. I guess I'm old enough to remember him with the Cubs. And came to the Cardinals in a trade for Ernie Broglio, who had a terrific season the year before, and people were not happy with that trade in St. Louis. They thought they were getting, who is this 24-year-old? How old? I think he was 23, 24. This punk kid that this lousy outfielder that we gave up Brolio, who won 13 games or something the year before for us. But it kind of worked out for the Cardinals, I'd say, wouldn't you, Rich? That trade. So
Yeah, yeah. Stayed with the Cardinals for the rest of his career.
yeah, yeah, and it was quite a career. So he passes on, and like you said, Rich, um, the guys we watched are getting older now, and we're going to start seeing them leave the scene, and it means that we're getting older too, I guess. So
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. You really think about your own
Yeah, you do.
mortality
Thought. Yeah.
in in reference to these players that we grew up seeing. And back to Seaver for a minute. I know I watched your special on Mets musings on that, and you had talked about how the Mets didn't really honor Seaver when they had a chance to, and that's a shame. A lot of these teams, and each team is individual in the way that they honor their older players and all, but it's a local thing. Like, more about Seaver and how he wasn't honored by the Mets more than I would, a
Mhm.
ton more, because I'm more focused towards the Phillies end of news and things. But can you talk a little bit about that? Like Seaver not really getting everything he could have gotten from the Mets and enjoying it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Wilpons really, when they built City Field, there was a lot of criticism when they opened it up in 2009 because it seemed to be very almost Dodger centric instead of Mets centric. Fred Wilpon had grown up a Brooklyn Dodger fan, loved the Brooklyn Dodgers, and of course, when you go into City Field, there's a huge number 42 for Jackie Robinson, which I could understand. He was such a pivotal point in the game of baseball, and it's a New York thing. I don't have a problem with that. People want to change it now to 41, but they didn't embrace right away the Mets history, and people say, well, what history do you have? Well, there's a lot of history with the Mets. You just got to delve into it. Even the 62 team with the lovable losers and the amazing Mets, and then the 69 team, there's enough there. There's enough history. And in 2009, Tom Seaver did close out Shea Stadium and open City Field, but um, there was there was an he was the greatest of Met of all time, bar none. I mean, you can go down the list. There's been some great players with the Mets, but nobody's top Seaver. As I said, first time ballot Hall of Famer, 312 wins, uh, three all Cy Young Award, 12-time All Stars. Uh, he may have been one, if not one of the greatest pitchers of all time in baseball history. And, to not honor that constantly um, was a shame. And in recent years, there's been a big push toward it. And last year, they named the street Tom Seaver Way. You know, but by then he retired from public life, couldn't attend. This year or next season, they are going to unveil a statue that they should have done 10 years ago of Tom Seaver. And, they could have done it in 2012, 2013. I guess there was politics. Don't forget, we had the Madoff scandal. So the money was tight then. I guess they didn't want to do it. But, all I had to do was saying, look, we'll give you the area to put it in. Can we raise private funds? And people would have bitched and complained, but people would have put in nickels, dimes, pennies, whatever it would have taken, dollars, hundreds of dollars to
Yeah.
get a statue built. And they didn't take that route. They could have went that way, and yet they didn't do that either. So there's a lot of hard feelings with the Wilpons for not honoring more. There are a lot of people, myself included, thinks that there should be a few statues. There should be a statue to Joan Payson as well, the original owner of the Mets, who loved baseball, brought the Mets back to New York, a National League baseball team, after the Dodgers and the Giants both left, and was really instrumental in that. Loved the game, loved the players, was a terrific owner. Was the owner for the '69 Mets. And then she had some health issues. She was elderly and passed away in, I guess it was, I can't remember the year. It was the early '70s, mid '70s, and her her kids took over, and they had no interest in running the ball club and ran it into the ground. And then the Wilpons and Doubleday bought the Mets in 1980 and built the other championship team. And then Doubleday was forced out by the Wilpons and blah blah blah. But anyway, the there was not a lot of grass. Yes, we have the Mets Hall of Fame, and but there was not a lot of grasp of Mets history, and that's what it angered a lot of people. And we like to see. Hopefully, they're in negotiations to sell. Hopefully, the new owner. It's gotten better. It's after the initial complaints. There was a lot of metrifying, if you will, of the stadium, and it really became more of a home as time went on. And then after the World Series, that solidified it. But in the beginning, there wasn't a lot of Mets history, and as I say, there's so much history you can glean out of the '69 World Series. Um, that they should have honored it more. But in recent years, they have made an effort to try to honor the alumni more, and hopefully, they were supposed to retire Jerry Kuzman's number this year. Pandemic kind of killed that. I guess they'll do it next year, but you've got another 76-year-old man. I mean, who's had a heart attack, and will he be able to travel next year? It's these guys are getting old. You got to honor them and honor them quickly, and move on from there. But that's the way it is. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and it's more, you know, to honor the player, but it's also a marketing tool.
Definitely,
You know,
definitely.
like you said on your podcast on, the passing
Hmm.
of Tom Seaver. For those that didn't get to see him, what a shame. But if you have honoring at the ballpark and you bring back certain things and um, do certain nights on Tom Seaver, and I'm sure maybe they have done it. I don't know, but that's a chance to bring these people to honor these players, and it's a dual purpose. You're honoring the player, and you're also marketing. You're bringing some fans into an era that they didn't get a chance to experience.
Well, that's another argument we have around here. They have, as I said, they have a Mets Hall of Fame, and they have a lot of the guys that we're happy. Ed Kranepool's in there. Guys that weren't Cooperstown material, but we're stars in on the Mets, and beloved players. You have it in Philadelphia. I don't know. You have a similar thing. I don't know if it's a Circle of Honor or something.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Wall of Fame. It's the same principle. They don't retire their number, but they get a plaque, and they're in this Mets Hall of Fame, and it's an honor, I think. You know, but there's no consistency to it, and it doesn't have to be yearly. It could be every other year. But the Mets did it like they did like they put somebody in, and then it was like 8 years before they put somebody else in, and it's kind of like it kind of kills. If I say try to do it every year, there's got to be there's enough players around that you can say, hey, you can put in a guy. Baseball's a funny sport. There are guys that become huge uh, icons, if you will, to a team, and may not be it may not be on the big scale of things. They're like folk heroes, you might say. You know, like guy I always think of was Benny Agbayani, right?
Yeah.
He was terrific here. I mean, he was a 260, 270 hitter, but had some really big hits. He made a couple of dumb plays too. I mean, he threw a quarter fly. He was an outfield. He caught a fly ball. It was I think it was the second out of the inning. He thought it was his third. He flipped it in the stands, and he had to hop in the stand, get the ball. You know, it was one of those plays. But a guy like that, I think he should be in because the fans loved him, and he did contribute to you know, that 2000 1999 team and everything. He was a part of that, and you know, he played for another 5-10 years or something like that. But you know, that's why you have a team Hall of Fame. I think, you know, you just don't honor the greatest of the, you know, you, you honor the guys that were great for your team,
Yeah.
that may not have gone on to a terrific career or had an average career overall, but they did something special with you know, your team. And you know, I would like to see the Mets do something like that every other year or something, instead of this, you know, 8 years and then maybe 6 years they go, and then somebody says, "Hey, we haven't had anybody in Hall of Fame." You know, um, they have to get more consistency. Like you said, that's a marketing thing. They had a whole thing, you know, when David Wright retired, David Wright Day, and the place was packed. And it was a game in September. I think they were out of the race by then, but people wanted to be there for David Wright's day, you know, David Wright Day. So, you know, when you give out a little something or to commemorate it, that's what people want. Like you said, marketing. They don't always think that way, and hopefully, like I said, we're gonna have a new owner that's a hedge fund guy, and hopefully he will, you know, bring in some better marketing guy, or at least you know, they might have good marketing people. I shouldn't discredit them. That just maybe the owners don't listen to them all the time. But we'll see. I'll step off of my soapbox now and allow you to talk.
No problem. That's what we do here. We talk baseball, and someone gave us a nice little compliment on our Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. Gentleman saying, "Yeah, these guys are polished. They know what they're talking about." And Gary's accent isn't too bad for a New Yorker. So a
Well,
little,
I'm a Queens kid. We do have that certain accent.
he referenced Steve Summers, the New York baseball talk or sports talk icon there.
Right.
So, but thank you for the compliment and thanks for tuning in to the show. Leave us a comment if you want. Spur us on. Give us a little uh, fuel for the fire, so to speak, to talk more great baseball with you on the show here. And Gary, we're chugging along towards the playoffs almost. I know I said that the last show, but we're really close to it now.
Yeah, and 8 teams are going to make it a little bit crazy in a way, Rich. But you know, this whole year has been crazy. You know, and kind of upside down. Look at what happened. The Yankees are doing are hurting. They've got guys injured. And, once again, Stanton is out. Aaron Judge is out. You know, these guys might be great ball players, but you have to be on the field to prove how great you are. So I kind of laugh when they say, "Oh, you know, they're great." Well, they may be great, but they can't stay healthy enough to really prove it. So, um, but the Yankees are not doing well. Well, they'll I guess they'll make the playoffs. I mean, who doesn't this year? Uh,
Yeah.
really. Um, but your Phillies are hanging in there. They're doing okay. Uh, Miami, unbelievably, is hanging in there as well.
Yeah.
It's a wacky year. The Dodgers are the one that are going for it, and they're the one that makes the most sense so far.
Yeah. And as you said, the 8 teams on each league getting in, something that will probably carry over from here on in is what I'm reading. The owners probably wanting to get a cash register ring on more playoffs, whereas baseball will now more resemble hockey and basketball, where over half of the teams get in. Now, the only problem I have with that is during the regular season, it sort of not cheapens the regular season, but if you know a majority of the teams are going to get into the playoffs, then the regular season is like wasting your money now to go spend and see a baseball game whenever we can get back to the stadiums if those that choose to will. But that's always the way I started drifting away from hockey and basketball years ago was, everybody makes the playoffs, so to speak, in quotes.
Yeah, it uh, like you said, it does kind of take the luster off of the season in a way. Where is the pennant race? And then it's like what other sports have been forced to do. They've been forced almost to find different ways to make the season more, uh, acceptable or whatever. Uh, we're going in that direction, though. We are definitely going. We're going into the end of the American League and National League. You know, like football and like like you said, hockey and basketball, where it's all just one big league mishmash with a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference. Unfortunately, that's the way it's heading. Baseball's on a power grab now. They want to take over. They want to run minor league baseball. They want to run everything. Even I read this and I had to read it twice because I wasn't sure. They even want to take over little league baseball. Um, I don't know why. I mean, it's been running so great as a separate entity. Why do you want to bring it under the wing and ruin the whole thing?
Yeah.
But this
And
is
it's that's the thing. I like baseball. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the MLB and the way they do things. I'm really not. Especially lately in the past couple years since the new commish has got in. I am really shying away from Major League Baseball as a group. I love the game of baseball. I always have. But this current MLB setup, so to speak, the power grab, the rule changes, the this, the that, force things down your throat. I don't buy it. I don't go for it. It's pushing me away from the game a little.
well, and we've both been to minor league games and enjoyed them immensely. And look, this year they completely killed that whole minor league system, and they're going to force them out. They want to shrink from 100 and what was it, 140 teams, 160 teams to 120 teams, and they want to have more control. It's going to happen. It just the president of the minor league baseball just retired. There's a committee that is they had one committee that didn't want to merge and they scrapped that and got another committee that's more leaning towards merging with Major League Baseball. I guess people didn't realize that minor league and major league was completely two separate entities, um, and they had working agreements between the major league teams and the minor league teams, and a lot of the major league teams owned uh, their minor league teams. For instance, the Mets owned the Brooklyn Cyclones and the St. Lucie Mets, and now the Syracuse Mets. But they had a couple of other teams in their farm system that were owned independently that they had a working agreement with. Well, that working agreement violated this year, not violate, ended this year, not violated, ended this year. And with the pandemic, I guess it gave them a perfect excuse not to, or ended at the end of this year, I believe. I'm sorry. And next year is going to be interesting to see what even happens in minor league ball. Teams are going to be contracted teams, or they're not going to have contracts. Some teams will be going were trying to go into independent leagues to keep their their status. I give you the whole New York Penn League, which was one of the oldest minor league, uh, you know, uh, leagues, uh, is gone. It's they're going to obliterate the whole thing. Now, some of the teams, the rumors are the Brooklyn Cyclones, which are very successful, will stay, hopefully, as the Double A team of the New York Mets. We'll see. It's owned by the Mets, so that's going to be an interesting thing to see. Um, the Hudson Valley Renegades, which is upstate, very successful team up there. They love that team. They're looking for. They were supposed to go to an A league, I believe, of some team. Their own. I don't know if they're owned, but they're affiliated with the Tampa Bay Rays. They're not owned, um, but now they're kind of their future. They don't know what's going to happen with them. So this is going to be something else that's got to be figured out in the winter because they need to have that minor leagues in place to play next year. But with this pandemic, it screwed everything up, and we would have had at least one more year of the minor leagues, and it went when they canceled the seasons, and then went to this alternate site plan thingy, and it's just really a mess. And I was telling you before, I was talking to Skip Lockwood, the former Boston Red Sox and New York Met and Milwaukee Brewer. And interesting thing about Skip is he was also a member of the one and only year of the Seattle Pilots in 1969. But he says he doesn't even watch a game. He doesn't. He's just not interested. It's not getting his attention this year. And I have to agree. I haven't watched the game in a week. I glance in, I check the box scores. I really think the lack of a crowd kind of takes away from the game.
Yeah, I myself haven't really tuned in to full games. I've dabbled in 15, 20 minutes worth here and there,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not devoting my time like I do on a normal season. That might be a good thing. So
I, it is, but one of the things we said we were going to talk about, and as we get to that their ratings are going down the toilet. And a lot of it has to do with the political aspect of what they pulled this year by embracing the Black Lives Matter group and allowing the players to express themselves. Here's my thought. I'll get back on my soapbox here for a second, but
we'll put it up. We'll push it up again for you.
Look, I know these players are concerned, and there's a lot of issues going on, but politics and sports do not belong together. Um, people you turn on the NBA and you get that Black Lives Matter thing, on the courts. Nobody wants to watch that. I'm sorry, nobody wants to get pushed. And then you turn on another station and they're burning down Portland or Seattle. People don't want to see that. They don't want to associate the two. You want to go protest, you do it on your time. You can go do all the protest you want. You can opt out of the season and spend the whole season protesting. But when you bring it on the field like that, it's not right. It's not, and you know, it, not only does it tick off the fans, it ticks off. There might be players on the team that feel caught. Look what happened with Drew. What's his name with the Saints?
Yeah, Drew Brees. Yeah,
Drew Brees, right? How he capitulated in and gave up his well, I reevaluate. No, you didn't reevaluate. You got pressured by everybody on your team, and that's really disgraceful because he caved. He gave in. Um, I had recorded an episode of Mets Musings, and then Tom Seaver uh, passed away, so I scrapped that episode. But I said in the beginning that what happens if somebody, they're letting wear these Black Lives Matter T-shirts? What happens if somebody showed up with a pro-choice T-shirt or a pro-life T-shirt in the clubhouse, or a Trump Pence or a Biden Harris T-shirt in the clubhouse, and people didn't like that. Well, uh, but why? You've opened the game up to that in the clubhouse, and that can bring a lot of discontent, especially
Similar,
nowadays. You know,
similar to what we're seeing.
yeah, but I mean, we're talking inside a clubhouse, and that's why it should not be in the workplace. It should not be in. When I was working, they told us in the last election, please, no political stuff, no Obama pins, or no. Who did he run against the last election? Romney, was it, or McCain? Whatever, whoever it was. Oh no, well, the last election when I was still working was Trump and Hillary. Don't none, because we don't
Yeah.
want no arguments on in the workplace. Well, baseball caves to that. The NBA caves to that. The NFL caves to that. We'll see what it does to their ratings. I'm telling you, the first team that kneels down in the NFL, I think their ratings are going to go right down the toilet. People don't want to see that. People respect the flag and the veterans. And it turned me off when Dominic Smith and the Mets did that one day, knelt. The next day, they all went out and then walked off the field as a protest. That turned me off. Haven't watched the full game since then. I'm just was so angry at them for that, for bringing that into my entertainment that I pay for. That's you do that on your time. How would you like it if you walked into a dry cleaner and he turned your back or he took a knee or something? Um, maybe it's
Yeah.
a way to that they catch criminals if they
It's
play the national anthem instead of a siren. Maybe they all stop and take a knee and you can arrest them easier. I don't know. It doesn't belong in the sport.
and it shouldn't be an axe to grind by sports players on a national stage or a semi-national stage, local, which is most of these teams. They're not garnering a national audience most of the time.
Right.
But baseball has been very good at this over the years. They've certain now. I said that on Twitter once a couple of weeks ago, and then people were reminding me, no, they go ahead and promote their own causes all the time. But to me, it wasn't one that I considered something that they shouldn't do, so to speak. So yes, they do go out on a limb, and they've been going out on a limb more and more recently, in my opinion, on things that they shouldn't do. Let's just say that politics, religion. They're not going to espouse religion. Why would they go out and espouse politics? I know they're trying to, quote unquote, do the right thing, sound like they're doing the right thing, and appealing to people. That's what they want to do. But you've got, you know, 10 other people on the other side that are saying, no, but this is going on. And why are you allowing that and promoting that?
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword, and it's something that the MLB stayed out of. When football did it, uh, they stayed out of it, and it was great. It was a breath of fresh air in the country for anybody, not just people that didn't agree with kneeling towards the flag salute, uh, a national anthem. it was just a breath of fresh air that MLB chose to not get involved. And now they've gone full in, jumped into the water, so to speak, um, and just made a mockery of the way they used to stay neutral in certain situations where they should. So, and it's not taking a side. It's you're a sports franchise. You're a sports league. You're not in the business of politics. If you were, uh, God help you. And like you just brought up, the ratings went down. If there was fans at the stadium, I guarantee you that would go down hugely. And it's not over. There's going to be a next season when they open these ticket booths, when viewing is going to matter, and you're going to see a big backlash from people, for and against, but mainly ones that don't want to be exposed to the views of an organization like the MLB. They came to watch baseball.
Well, I said that they would have never, when the Mets walked off, went on the field, and then walked off with the Marlins that day. They would have never did that if there was people paying for tickets. If they had a full house or a half a house or any house, if if it wasn't cardboard cutouts, if there was people in the stands for that game, they never would have walked out because the backlash would have been, first off, they would have been, you might have had fights in the stands because you would have had half the crowd booing at the fact they were walking off, and you would have had half the crowd cheering that they were walking off, and you would have caused so much discontent. And just go on the media, go on social media and see. And you see how people are, one side or the other. And that's why it doesn't belong. This was supposed to, sport is the unifying. It is the escape. And yeah, I know. Okay, well, they want to be, socially justice warriors and have their feelings felt. They're human beings. Do it off in your off time, not in when you go into that stadium. You represent a team. You put on a uniform. You represent a team. Um, do it on your own time. I have no problems with that at all. And but don't do it on company time. That's all I'm saying. And the company shouldn't. It's like these guys want to get. They want to be. These leagues want to be politically correct, and um, but people don't want to see that, and they're paying for it. And, they're going to give you this self-righteous speech about, well, we can't help it if people don't want to agree with us on this, but when the big money's not there for these players either. The NBA, they were going to walk out. They were going to walk out. Remember this a couple of weeks ago or last week or something. They weren't going to come back. They walked out. And then, well, we negotiated. Yeah, you know what the negotiation was? They found out they weren't going to get paid for the rest of the season if they didn't come back. So they came back mighty quick when the dollar signs were put up there. So look, again, I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. I don't care if you want to protest, but I don't think it should be done um, on the field. And football's going to be. This is going to be another one. Um, the big thing now that people are complaining about is they're going to put. Supposedly, they're going to put the name of Jacob Blake on their helmets, but they wouldn't. In the Dallas Cowboys a couple of years ago wanted to put the names of the 5 police officers that were killed ambushed in the line of duty, and the NFL said no, but they're going to allow them to put the Jacob Blake's name on there. That's going to cause some controversy too. People are not going to be happy with it. I think
It's
if
ridiculous.
their ratings go, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shame. Um, no matter how you think it should be handled, but certainly not that. Well,
And
we appreciate.
Rich, one more point.
Mhm.
With this pandemic, people have learned. A lot of people have learned other things to do, and they realize they don't need sports 24/7. They don't need movies 24/7. They don't need certain things 24/7 anymore. And you know, that's kind of stuff is gonna hurt them. They don't realize it, but we're gonna have to see a big revamping, I think, in professional sports, because I think the big days of contracts may be going, at least as far as TV and that kind of thing. But we'll see what happens.
Yep. We appreciate you listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show podcast. You can go over to anchor.fm/baseball talk radio show. That's the home of this podcast. And you can subscribe to the show, listen to all our back shows, even support the show. There's a support tab on that main page over at anchor.fm/baseball talk radio show. You can click that support button there as I'm doing the show here. And then you're going to pop up to another page that'll say, what would you like to contribute? 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. You can safely and securely put your card number in, debit card, or credit card, and support the show. So we appreciate any supporters that would like to support our show in that manner, and it's safely processed by Anchor Payment. So rest assured, it'll be all put back towards the show. So check out that over at anchor.fm/baseball talk radio show, all one word, and you'll see the home, the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're on Apple Podcast, Breaker, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Republic, and of course Spotify. So go to your favorite podcast aggregator and click subscribe on our show. You won't miss a thing coming out of our mouth.
And we're on YouTube as well, if you'd like to see the video version of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. So we're all over the place, Rich. I like
Yes,
melted
indeed.
butter smeared all over the place.
That's true. Just like a newspaper. We're well read. We're all over the place. Wanted to give a shout out on this site. He left us a message on our Facebook page as well many moons ago. I don't think we mentioned this. Anyway, we're going to mention it now. It's called baseballinthe1960s.com, and that's baseball in the spelled out, and then 1960s.com. It's a great blog about baseball in the 1960s because it's been a number of years since this gentleman, his name's Bob Brill, has covered baseball as it used to be back in the 60s. So if you want to experience the way the game looked and felt back in the 1960s, go on over to that website and check it out. And if you can't find it for whatever reason, go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page, as Gary just mentioned, and we'll send you a link to this great site. It's got some nice baseball cards posted on it, some trivia that he does. He even gives out Starbucks gift cards occasionally. So great site there, baseballinthe1960s.com.
I used to love the baseball cards in the 50s and the 60s, and I don't know what year they started with the more of the action shots, from games and stuff, but the old poses and stuff, they were the best. The guys, with the bat and with the phony fielding position, it was obvious they weren't even on the field; they were on in front of the dugout or something. And if you notice, a lot of those in the 60s and the 50s were all taken at either you can tell a lot of them were taken at Yankee Stadium for the American League teams, and a lot of them were taken at either Shea Stadium or the Polo Grounds early on for the National League teams. And I believe it was because I'm no expert, but I think Tops was really located in New York. It was a Brooklyn company, I believe. And so they would get the pictures of the guys when they all came into town. So that's why you would see a lot of the old American League players, if they took like a headshot or something like that, you'd see the facade of the old Yankee Stadium in the background. So a lot of them were taken there, I think, So just a little bit of trivia. Could be wrong, but that's what I remember as a kid seeing. But I used to love the old poses where the catchers would stand in and sit there, they'd be in a crotch, they'd have the glove up like that. And if you really go back to the old pictures, the right hand was up. That would
Mm-hmm.
try to keep it from getting a foul tip, but then eventually it went into the fist behind your back at more you would see when um, the gloves became more pliable. In the 50s, you needed two hands to catch the ball because the gloves were just like a round, um, almost like a saucer, with a pocket in the middle, and it was tough to catch it with two hands. I had one of those gloves. I mean, you had to use two hands. That's how I learned my father taught me how to be a catcher. He had his old catcher's glove, and it was like a freaking, I don't know what you call it. It was like a plate with a pocket in it. You had to use two hands, and then
It was a mitt.
yeah, they came out with the hinged model more in the 70s, I guess, the late 60s, early 70s, and then you could do more of a one-handed thing and try to protect your right hand. But I have you can see my pinky is I can't straighten that out. That's bent.
For our audio viewers, yes. The
Yeah,
slight.
yeah, I forgot about that. Go to the video, check it out. My pinky is bent from foul tips, and because I'm an old guy. So,
Old school.
and Rich, today is a special day for Puerto Rican baseball players. The Puerto Rican MLB players will be allowed to wear Roberto Clementi's number 21 during the commemoration of the 19th annual Roberto Clementi Day. That's today. Um, and this is from a story that came from ESPN. All Major League Baseball players will also be given the option to wear a patch with the number 21 to commemorate the legacy of the late Pittsburgh Pirates star. So if you see a lot of 21s today, you'll know what it is, why they're wearing it. They're wearing it in honor of Roberto Clemente.
Very cool. And I think they should have allowed anybody to wear it to honor
Yeah.
Roberto Clementi myself. But
Yeah, everybody wears 42.
I mean, give them a choice.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to do something for just the Puerto Rican players. Uh, I don't know. Or Manfred's missing the boat once again.
Very interesting. Around the news, Joe West ejected Nats GM Mike Rizzo from a luxury suite in Atlanta yesterday, I believe. And we haven't heard too much of this, but apparently GM Mike Rizzo for the Washington Nationals, who was just extended for several years, was standing up yelling down at the umpires in an empty stadium. And, it's unbelievable.
Well, another victim of COVID, the pandemic. The stadiums are empty. They can hear everything. So I guess, you have to keep those windows closed and have those conversations. Otherwise, um, there's a first.
Yeah. And he was supposedly yelling down at the umps. So not too much noise in the stadium these days. Mike Trout making some noise. He hit his 300th homer as a Los Angeles Angel of Anaheim, whatever they call themselves today. He passed Tim Salmon of the Angels, who previously held the record. Now he's got it. And I'm still wondering, when I read this, I was thinking to myself, is he going to be the forgotten player, the great player that never makes the playoffs that we remember different people growing up being?
It could be like Ernie Banks never played in a World Series game. Yeah, it could very well be. I would think that somewhere along the line he may get traded though.
Yeah.
Uh,
We're missing the great, Trout postseason, hasn't made the postseason. So what a shame. It's a shame that the Angels can't get it together. And again, they can't this year.
well, it's just too bad that he's not. Do you imagine how big a star if he played on the East Coast? He would be. He would be even bigger, I think, than he is. Probably the best all-around ball player in the game today. I mean, no offense to Bryce Harper, but I think Trout's a much better ball player all around. Better IQ, baseball IQ. I think got a better arm.
He's
Got a
got
better
more of a
temper.
He's got more of a Pete Rose in him,
Yeah,
so to speak.
yeah,
That
yeah,
constant,
yeah,
hard going, hard nosed hustle. You know,
yeah. I mean, and Harper's having a great year this year. If I last time I looked, so nothing against him, but he's a bit of a hothead, and it kind of hurts him and his team sometime where Trout is very level-headed. We're starting to hear the rumors. I don't know if it's just rumor or what, but the Mets might make a play for Trout. I don't know if he's going to be available. I don't know what it's going to take to get a Mike Trout. Probably a DeGrom or something like that. But we'll see what happens in the offseason.
yep. And bubbles for the playoffs are playoffs coming within 20 days from today as we're doing the podcast, September 9th, 2020. Still no official announcement from the MLB. What are they going to wait for, the day before to tell the players, oh, by the way, you're playing in a bubble A or bubble B?
Yeah, it's probably the way they should have been doing it all along. I think they want a neutral site for the World Series. I think they want to bring it to Texas, to the new stadium in Arlington, um, which, by the way, has gotten some of the worst reviews I ever heard for a new stadium. It's kind of a shame in a way, but they say it has no uh, soul. It's got no feeling to it. It's got it's like concrete, and that's about it. I haven't seen anything on it yet, but I haven't watched any games from there or anything like that. But uh, that's what I've read some reports. It's not that great, but it looks like they want to play the World Series there, and it does make sense. It's a dome stadium. It's Texas weather is usually fair at that time of year, I guess. And where else are they talking to bubble? They're talking about Florida and Arizona again, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Mainly because of the dome stadiums. I guess they figure they can get the games in more, and they have the minor league games. But I don't know. Uh, would the potential? You always gotta wonder. I mean, right now there you almost might be getting a herd mentality. What happens if you bring all of these guys together at one shot? Could they if somebody's got the COVID-19, it could spread among the whole playoff teams? Then I don't know. They should have done it in the beginning. Maybe that would have been the way to go.
Yeah. There's too many unanswered questions at this point. But baseball closing in about 15 days, closing the season off the 27th of September. Playoffs, I believe, begin on the 29th, if I'm not mistaken. Or I might have it backwards. 25th, the end of the season, and the playoffs start on the 27th. Not quite sure. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment. But one thing's for sure, it's coming up soon. About 14, 15 days from the time we're doing this podcast.
Right.
And no firm announcements on what's going to happen with the playoffs. So MLB dropping the ball on this one, I have to tell you, without making these announcements known. Apparently, there's some back and forth going on with this. So as soon as we find out, of course, we'll talk about it. And drop us a line if you want to get to us. Our best way is either email, and that's Rich at baseballtalkradio.com or Gary at baseballtalkradio.com. Go over to our Facebook page. Just search Facebook for the Baseball Talk Radio Show. You can find us there. Leave a comment if you like, or over at Twitter. You can also leave us a comment there. So I'd love to hear from you. And Gary, is another fast show.
Just no accent jokes, okay?
And I brought the Shure SM58 mic out on this one. I'm wondering if anybody out there can tell me if it sounds better than the one I normally use for the show. I'd appreciate that feedback as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, Rich, another one in the books. So I guess we'll just sign off and say it just doesn't feel like a pennant run. It does it, the pennant stretch, but nothing's felt that way this year, so why should we expect it to be any different?
Yep, you take care as well, Gary. Remember, stay safe, wear your mask, wash those hands, and as you always say on your Mets Musings podcast, stay optimistic.
And we'll see you next time.